dun, dun. Dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Ba-dun, dun, 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 dun. Oh! Oh, my finger! Oh, man. Whatever. Hey guys, my name is Drew and welcome to Drew Reviews. Excuse that. Ow, my finger. What's up? So today we are going to be talking about The Force Awakens. I know it's not Force Awakens came out what's today, 2019? And then 15 came out like 4 years ago. So I know I'm a little late, but you know, with Star Wars, with this whole sequel trilogy, chaos, you know, everything's relevant in Disney Star Wars to talk about because it's all interconnected. And, you know, Rise of Skywalker, even though it doesn't have that much hype, Force Awakens is still part of that saga, that trilogy, and is probably one of the reasons why this whole trilogy and even Disney Star Wars is not doing so well. So today I have an article here. Oh, I really hurt my finger. Today I have an article here called The Force Awakens, 15 Reasons It's the Worst Star Wars Film. And, you know, would I say it's the worst Star Wars film? I don't know. You know, on an entertainment level, I'd say Force Awakens is more entertaining than The Last Jedi. And maybe it's easier to watch. But at the same time, it doesn't make it a better movie. I'm just saying it's easier to watch, and it's a lot shorter, which makes it easier to watch. But it's also, there's more action and stuff. But you know, that's not what makes a movie good. It's the story. And unfortunately, both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi lack of a good story. You know, there's some elements that are good. There was some potential, but overall it just wasn't. They just didn't hit the mark with it. So I have a list here from this article, CBR.com. I don't know why Force Awakens is the worst movie. And you know, a lot of you guys might say that the prequels are the worst, but I am a prequel lover. I literally, you know, I listen to what people say about the prequels, but I grew up with them, so it's a lot harder for me to get on that train. And I still believe that the prequels are amazing and great and just as good as the original trilogy. And I will be happy to get into my thoughts on another discussion about that. I will be happy to tell you guys why. So let's get into it. We have a list here of 15 reasons why The Force Awakens is the worst movie. So I'm going to read what this list says, and then I will tell you guys what I think, if I agree, if I disagree. Number 15, overpowered hero. Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, was a scavenger abandoned as a kid on the desert planet Jakku and left waiting for her mysterious family to return. She proved to be completely self-sufficient until she met the ex-stormtrooper Finn. This began a quest to fight a new empire known as the First Order and find Luke for his resistance, backed up by the Republic and his sister, General Leia Organa. However, from being a master mechanic to suddenly being able to fly the Millennium Falcon and being able to use the Force, everything just seemed to go her way. Many folks criticize this as a Mary Sue factor, meaning she could overcome anything easily, and while this description was perhaps unnecessarily harsh and condescending, seeing her go toe-to-toe with Luke's lightsaber against Kylo was a bit of a stretch. The fact that she ended up beating him, even though he was injured, just made things hard to believe in some people's eyes. Characters like Luke and Anakin spent years trying to master the Force, whereas it seemed Rey was using a Force app for everything. She even used a Jedi mind trick to escape Kylo's clutches. We are hoping, however, that this will all be explained in The Last Jedi. Well, obviously, I guess this was made before The Last Jedi, because what The Last Jedi does, instead of explaining it, it goes more into making Rey into that overpowered character. So I 100% agree with this. 100%. 100%. I love Daisy Ridley. She's a really good person, really great actress who, if the writers gave her like a struggle, because like you could see with her acting how like when she like does like emotional scenes where she's like crying or something, if it's like a sad scene, she gets really into it. So like if you made her like a character like that was struggling, that really had to struggle and work and to learn the Force and all that, I think it would be like one of the best performances ever. I think like her acting is really good. I think it's just undiminished, or I don't know the word. It's like undermined by the fact that she doesn't have to go through the trials like Anakin, Obi-Wan, Luke, So that's why, if they gave her struggles, if they made her train and all that, she would win like an Oscar. I don't know if she has, but like you know what I mean? Because she's that good, and they could have really pulled off something good. But it's obvious, when Disney made this trilogy, the first thing they wanted to do was make a female hero because there was really no female lead. It was always Luke was the main guy in the original, and then Anakin in the prequels. And I'm so happy they did a female lead because it changes it up. It shows that like you don't just have to be a guy. Even though we saw girl Jedis like Ahsoka and I forgot her name. Like those like other Jedi there. Like like I don't know. I think it's very good to have a new female Jedi, especially the main character. Like it's cool. Like I don't really care. Like if it's a guy, okay. If it's a girl, okay. Like just tell a good story. It shouldn't be any different if it's a guy or a girl. But now like what I really dislike, they chose a girl. That was the first thing they did before even choosing this, like making the story. Okay, obviously the story's more important, but they just wanted to choose the girl. Like okay, whatever. But then like they want to like send this message about like women can do anything or something, and like to tell little girls like because they made this character Rey to like inspire little girls. Kathleen Kennedy's wearing the shirt, the Force is female. Like they're trying to send this message, and I want like little girls and little boys, everyone to be inspired by her, but like they're sending a message that you could just do anything you want without having to work for it. And like, look, if you're gonna do that in a movie, okay, but this is continuing off of a saga where people had to train to learn the Force, Now you're continuing it, but now you're making it where she doesn't have to train. Like, if it was a guy, it would be the same problem. It's really nothing to do with a woman or a man. Like, you can't just have the Force, Or if you're gonna have the Force, like, you have to make it like, like, obviously, like, Qui-Gon Jinn or something, We see him in episode 1. He's already a Jedi Knight. We know he learned under Yoda. We don't have to see him training or whatever. We already know, So that's, like, okay. If he's using a lightsaber, that's not like, oh my god, but how does he know how to use a lightsaber? Like, it wasn't in the movie, but he's been training under there for years just because they're, like, telling you that, and it's implied. But with Rey, she's never held a lightsaber. She's never used the Force. And now she's doing things that are better than Yoda. She's literally the greatest Jedi ever. I'm not even kidding. In The Last Jedi, when she lifted all those rocks, she lifted them so effortlessly. And when Yoda was trying to lift up that beam before it was hitting Anakin and Obi-Wan, when they were fighting Count Dooku in episode 2, like, Yoda was struggling. And what sucks is, like, whatever, I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do in episode 9. If they're gonna say she's a clone of Palpatine or something, or just say she's no one. They have to make her something. They can't just continue with she's a nobody. JJ said there's more to the story, but like, does that really mean like he's changing the whole thing? It doesn't really sound like he's changing the whole thing. He just said there's more to the story. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, like in episode 7, she literally flew the Millennium Falcon. She was able to do the Jedi mind trick without even knowing what it was, and then she beat Kylo Ren, which I think is just like insane. Like, how do you like? Oh my god! Like, I don't care how strong you are. Like, you could be like freaking Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and you're in Star Wars, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, it wouldn't be excusable, even if he was this ripped guy or whatever, like you can't, he's still not going to beat Kylo Ren in a lightsaber battle because he's never held a lightsaber. Like, what? And like, Kylo's been training under Luke and Snoke. Rey's never trained, and she beat him. Like, they don't explain it in The Last Jedi, and there was no plan, whatever they come up with in episode 9, they're just making it up. So like, I really thought with Rey, I thought if they gave her a compelling arc and made her struggle, then I thought she could have been one of the best characters. Like, she really would have been, because there's something like you feel bad for her. She's an orphan, but then she kind of just gets everything she wants. She wants to be Kylo, she does it. She wants to escape here, she does it. It's all so easy. Luke lost Obi-Wan in death. He lost to Vader. His friends were in trouble. Han Solo got frozen in carbonite, and it was kind of his fault. Well, it wasn't really his fault, but like he didn't get there on time. Rey so far has struggled through nothing. Sure, Han Solo and Luke died, but she had no connection to them. There was no connection. I definitely, if I were doing this trilogy, I would have, what I always say, like, Han and Leia should have had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and then like Luke should have had like a son or something, and then the son of Han and Leia turns to the dark side in 7. Like, we see him turn to the dark side, and we see why he turns to the dark side instead of just having him turn to the dark side randomly in the Empire and all that. And then you have the girl, and you have Luke, you have Han and Leia's daughter, and then Luke's son together trying to stop their Luke's son's cousin and her brother. I'll get into what I think this trilogy should have been in another video, because that's definitely a long video, but I really feel like there was so much potential for the trilogy, but they just didn't capitalize. And yeah, that's what I would have done, if I were them. So, okay. Now, on to reason 14 why The Force Awakens, according to this article, is the worst movie. Underwhelming villain. We never really got to understand Kylo's motivations for turning back on his family, betraying Luke, his Jedi Master, and also eliminating the new Jedi Order with his Knights of Ren. Abrams and company probably left this to be expanded on in future movies, but context was needed to inform just why he was such a whiny emo brat. His constant frustration at Rey made him underwhelming and a far cry from intimidating villains of old, such as Darth Maul, Moff Tarkin, Count Dooku, Darth Vader, and the Emperor. We appreciate that his more emotionally driven character was the point, but it rung surprisingly hollow. The scene where he melts down in the control room using his Sith powers and lightsaber to destroy everything felt like a child who lost his toy, and Snoke, his new master, constantly checking in on his emotions, really took away from how scary he could have been. As a contrast, Vader in that final Rogue One scene felt much more gruesome than what Kylo offered in this entire movie. And I agree. I agree too. When Kylo's like raging, it's not like, how are we supposed to find that threatening? And like, okay. Well, obviously this is the thing with Force Awakens. This article obviously came out before The Last Jedi, but the thing with Force Awakens, a lot of people did relatively enjoy The Force Awakens. And, there were some issues that people noticed, but they were waiting to see the next installment because maybe that could fix it. And obviously, The Last Jedi didn't really do that for most people. So, with Kylo, okay, sure, he's a whiny brat, but at least you have Snoke, There's still, forget Kylo, Kylo, obviously, whatever. But then Snoke is up there. And, with Snoke, he's the real villain, probably. That's kind of what it looked like. So even if Kylo turned to the light side, even if Kylo became like a baby or whatever, you still had Snoke. But then in The Last Jedi, they killed him. But yeah, in Force Awakens, he really was not intimidating. And when he killed like Han Solo, it was just like, oh my god, it was the worst death. Because why couldn't he have died sacrificing himself? Why did he have to die under his son, who nobody cares about? If we cared about Kylo Ren, then maybe it would have been a little more. We would have liked it better. But I don't really care about Kylo Ren. He's kind of annoying, and he's not. A lot of people like Darth Maul because he's cool. Even though he's a bad guy, he's cool and whatever. Kylo Ren's just not cool. He's just whiny and a little child. He's really so immature. He's always crying and all that and throwing temper tantrums. Vader would choke people and stuff when he got mad, but he wouldn't I don't know. It was a little too much. But Snoke was obviously, now that Snoke's dead, Kylo's the main villain. So that makes it even worse. If Snoke never died, at least you would have had him there to maybe take the reins as the big bad guy. But now you have no big bad guy. Number 13, reason why The Force Awakens is the worst movie of all time, according to this article. I think The Last Jedi is worse. Just because it disrespected the fans so much, it was just so disrespectful a lot of times. Last Jedi, then I don't know about Solo. Solo is just whatever. I don't even consider that a Star Wars movie. But yeah. 13. Lacked innovation. This film exists in a time where CGI and sound effects are in their prime, as seen with the new Planet of the Apes franchise, the Transformers movies, and of course, the plethora of comic book movies out there. However, for some reason, it didn't feel innovative and like the Star Wars properties actually moved into the future. Sure, we loved Abrams' use of practical effects, but the overall visual aesthetic still felt like we were back in the Revenge of the Sith days. The lack of things like new ships, for example, were particularly frustrating because we really would have loved to see some new fighters that could have rivaled the Millennium Falcon or a new breed of X-Wings, perhaps, rather than some dusting off the old models. There should have been new stormtroopers akin to the Death Troopers of Rogue One, and even cooler robots than BB-8 who just seemed there for the cute factor and to sell toys. The design, look, and feel of the movie didn't feel like a grand spectacle at all, and The Force Awakens didn't come off like an updated or contemporary piece of art. Sorry, I don't know. I'm bad at reading. I agree with this. Obviously, is it the main thing I'm thinking of when I watch the movie? No, but I agree because with the prequels, as much as people could say they don't like the prequels, you gotta admit the prequels expanded the universe. The prequels showed us new things, new planets. Who would have ever thought we'd see a lava planet? Who would have ever thought we'd see a water planet like Camino? This sequel trilogy just feels the same thing. It feels like the same as the same planets as the original. You have Jakku, which is basically Tatooine. It's basically Tatooine. There's really no difference. It's a sand planet. All sand looks the same. You have I forgot where that planet where Maz her castle was. That's I don't know. That's that's Yavin 4. You have Star Killer Base, which is basically like Hoth. It's just like very, very similar. And yeah, there wasn't any new ships like that really stood out. Like, imagine we got like the prequels introduced the Slave One. I'm not really good with the ships, like the Jedi Starfighters, stuff like that. Like, imagine it. Like, we really haven't gotten any new, like, really cool and interesting ships. It's just basically been the Millennium Falcon with the TIE Fighters chasing them. Like, I love the Millennium Falcon, but I agree with this. Like, why do you have to always have the TIE Fighters chasing them? Why don't you have something different? We already saw that in the original trilogy. Give us something different. Like, look, do I love the nostalgia? Yes. But I could just go back and rewatch A New Hope. Like, if you're going to tell a new movie, tell a new movie. So, I agree with that. Number 12, tried too hard. This film tried too hard to shroud everything in secrecy, from the mystery of Snoke's identity, Kylo's fascination with Vader, and the dark side, Luke going missing after Kylo turning on him with the Knights of Ren, and lastly Rey's heritage and marooning on Jakku. Everything all came off as forced, no pun intended. We're hoping The Last Jedi addresses all these issues come Christmas. But the older movies never crammed such big revelations down our throats or try to keep us guessing. Everything just felt more organic, although admittedly the originals did have the shock of the new on their side. Luke and Vader's big fatherly chat in The Empire Strikes Back and Leia being Luke's sister were well kept and smartly executed in a franchise that didn't succeed or fail necessarily on big jaw-dropping moments, but more on a rockling and having fun plot. Having too many mysteries doesn't always allow fans to enjoy the space saga as a true adventure. Sure, it helps, but the enjoyment of a film or its ascension to cultural phenomenon shouldn't be contingent simply on hidden revelations and throwing in a semblance of a plot to connect them. I agree, but I like the mystery. I am a fan of shows such as Lost, which J.J. Abrams directed some episodes. I am a fan of Cobra Kai, and some of these movies, there's like a bug there. Shoo. Okay. So the thing with that mystery so basically is that reason why that person who wrote the article was saying there was too much mystery. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I'd have to kind of disagree with this. I think that if you tell a good story, you could still have the mystery. For example, Cobra Kai is a show I love. Subscribe to Cobra Kai Kid, which is another one of my channels. It's on my page, my homepage. I'll put it in the description. And it's also right there. I'll put a card over there. So with Cobra Kai is a TV show. It's a continuation of The Karate Kid. And The Karate Kid was never a mysterious movie. It was just a fun, lighthearted, coming-of-age story. But Cobra Kai is a sequel in the television format that really dives into the characters. And, there's some things that are set up. Like, in Season 2, you're introduced to this new character who just randomly comes out of nowhere. And then, like, you hear, like, someone saying, like, one of the women are like, my husband was a really bad man or something. He did a lot of bad things. And, but, like, it's just things that, like, it's like, oh my God, like, what if that person is this person from the Karate Kid? Like, there's a lot of connections and there's some mystery, and it's done well, I think I love the original trilogy, but, with this trilogy, I like the mystery, I don't exactly like what they did with it, I would have wanted them to tell a new story with different mystery, but I like the mystery aspect. I think it's intriguing. I think it keeps fans talking. As long as the story is good, the mystery is good, but you just have, but I think the mystery is very important. As long as you're telling a good story, which they weren't. Number 11, a mediocre score. Ugh. John Williams won an Academy Award for the original Star Wars movie, and with its 2 sequels, he received further nominations. He returned to The Force Awakens, also nominated for an Oscar, and tried to inspire the same magic from the originals. In composing the score, he stuck to what was already there for Luke, Leia, and Han to maintain the nature of these characters from the old days, and it was nostalgic as he constructed their musical stories as big parts of the fabric of this universe. However, when it came to the new characters, he continued the same set of ideas and treated Rey, Kylo, and Poe without any impetus, which I don't know what that means. He didn't seem to grasp it was a continuing story, and the symphonic vibe he tried to shape just couldn't identify melodically, I don't know, for a new saga. The orchestral beats felt way too familiar with the older heads, and in this case just lacked any resonation with the new faces of the franchise. As for the battle scenes, particularly the climax, it wasn't anything inspiring, and Williams felt surprisingly bland without any recognizable signature. I mean, there are 3 pieces that really stand out to me. I think the score was good. That's not really a criticism that I have. There were 3, obviously that fight, the fight between Kylo and Rey, there wasn't really any real any soundtrack like Duel of the Fates or Battle of the Heroes, because it wasn't really I don't know. That would have been cool, but I thought Rey's theme was great. I love Rey's theme. It's one of the best themes in Star Wars. It's a great theme. It's so beautiful, and it could have even been Luke's theme, but I don't know. I really liked Rey's theme. Kylo's theme I enjoy Kylo's theme. It's very evil. I enjoy March of the Resistance. Thought that was catchy. I just don't like the Resistance because it's the same thing as the Rebellion. And what else? I like Jedi Steps. Jedi Steps is one of the best ones, one of the best pieces John Williams has ever wrote. So beautiful. When Rey is walking up the island to see Luke. Obviously, I don't really like that Luke was on an island in the first place, but the music was beautiful. So I'd have to disagree there and say I like the music. I thought the music was very good. Number 10, Death Star Remix. Star Wars was about enslaving the galaxy through the Empire's politics and corruption, with the planet-destroying weapon, the Death Star, at the center of things. When The Force Awakens revealed that it would be using a similar weapon, but this time in the form and size of a planet, Starkiller Base, instead of as a moving satellite, there was an air of unoriginality. They basically grounded the Death Star on the Starkiller Base, harnessing the energy from the stars and firing at targets. You'd think by now the Empire, or Empire-like entities, I don't know. Entities would know not to place all their hopes on one major weapon, especially as the Resistance usually attacks head-on and destroys it. How about improving your fleets, having multiple WMDs, or even extending your political reach like we saw on The Phantom Menace? Brains over brawn and brute strength seems to work as opposed to terrorist weaponry, and come The Last Jedi, we're hoping for something other than a major laser. I definitely was not a fan of Starkiller Base. It's literally the Death Star all over again, and it didn't really serve that much to the plot. I'm not kidding. It destroyed these planets that nobody cared about. I'm very sorry for your loss, people, but we didn't, when they used the Death Star to destroy Alderaan, that was Leia's home planet. Then they were trying to destroy the Resistance base and the Rebel base on Yavin 4, and that was with all our heroes, Han, Leia. Okay, well I guess Han wasn't really there, but that was all our heroes were there, so we cared about it. But then the Base destroys this random planet. These random planets, part of the New Republic, and we just don't know. We want to care, but we don't know anything about them to care. And then in the final scene, in A New Hope, destroying the Death Star. Like the Death Star was the main plot, destroying the Death Star. That was the main objective. But then you have in Force Awakens, the lightsaber battle between Kylo and Rey and Finn. And then you have destroying the Death Star, like Poe destroying the Death Star as another plot. Like it just wasn't, and it was kind of like, oh, we just go in, destroy it. Like there was no really setup and no tension to that Star Killer base. There was no tension with it. There was nothing, no investment. We didn't invest in anything. We didn't have any reason to feel threatened. They should have destroyed a planet that we were invested in, but instead they just Jakku. Imagine if they destroyed Jakku. But I guess Rey didn't really care about Jakku. Actually, she did because her parents. She was always waiting for her parents. That would have meant more if they destroyed Jakku. But I mean, I don't know. I really don't like Starkiller Base, and I really thought, at least with the prequels, they weren't doing the same stuff. It wasn't like each movie they're trying to destroy a super weapon. That would be boring. So, number 9, unnecessary characters. In the old films, there were hardly filler characters, but here, so many felt unnecessary. Lando Calrissian is an example of the original movies having someone introduced to really push the heroes up a notch, while Dooku in the prequels helped evolve Anakin into a true Sith contender. They all had a purpose here. But here, Finn, John Boyega, while incredibly fun, came off as someone who could be taken out of the story and whose mission wouldn't slow the plot down. Oscar Isaac's Poe Dameron also felt peripheral and was chucked in just to help bring in the cavalry at the end. He lacked the importance of, say, a Han Solo or an Obi-Wan Kenobi, who all became part of the family and shaped the hero's destiny. This pilot was purely a deus ex machina. Lor Santeca, who gave him info on finding Luke, was also barely explained. He felt super gracious, I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, and just chucked in to kickstart the search for Luke. I agree. Finn was funny, I guess. He was funny, but it just wasn't why? You have to think about the story, it just wouldn't make sense for him being a stormtrooper ever since he was taken, he was taken when he was a kid, raised to do one thing, which was kill the rebels. First off, it doesn't make sense why he would just realize that what they were doing was wrong, because if he was raised that one way, if he was raised to know that the rebels are bad, why would he be the only one to think, why am I doing this? And then he ends up killing all his stormtrooper friends. You probably had some friends there. Why would you just kill them? You're like, I don't want to fight, but you literally fight all your friends. And he's this funny guy. Why are you funny? Because that's not you weren't raised in you didn't have friends. You know what I mean? If it was someone who hung out with a bunch of people, had friends, whatever, then yeah, they could be funny. But this is a stormtrooper we're talking about. Why is he funny? It's just it's stereotypical, just the comical guy, just the guy who's always cracking jokes, and it just doesn't make sense. And it was very unnecessary. Oscar Isaac's Poe Dameron had potential. I thought he was pretty cool. It could have been an Indiana Jones kind of Han Solo guy. Well, they tried to set him up like a Han Solo, but he was originally supposed to be killed off. If you guys don't know, he was originally supposed to be killed in episode 7. Yeah, he was originally going to be killed when him and Finn crash land on Jakku. He was supposed to die, but then they brought him back. and they kind of just, oh hey, I'm back. Like, and he was barely in the movie. Like, he just wasn't in the whole middle of the movie. It was very, you don't really care about him. Like, why should I care that he destroys the Death Star? When Luke destroys, my bad, Star Killer Base. When Luke destroys the Death Star, he's actually like, we actually care about him because we've followed him throughout this whole journey. And now this is the final deciding moment. But for Poe, we don't really care about him. So why should him destroying the Death Star mean anything to us? Number 8, no epic space battles. The space battles were shockingly weak as well, and something could have been done as per what Rogue One memorably produced years later. The escapes of the Falcon on Jakku when Rey piloted it were cool, but we would have loved to see Han using it to take on or outrun the First Order and their battleships. The Phantom Menace in the first movie in 1977 gave us some of the most awesome space fights in the history of cinema, and here it felt like a missed opportunity. The climax did see the Resistance attack the Starkiller base, but there wasn't any moment that kept fans in awe and disbelief. That was a run-of-the-mill showdown that felt very by the numbers. That was the one advantage of using the Death Star. We got epic battles in the depths of space. Still, Rogue One took the fight inside the planet, and it was awesome. So there's no reason why Abrams couldn't have done the same or better here. Rogue One, that space battle was insane. I think Rogue One is the best Disney movie. Obviously it's not a perfect movie, you don't really care about the characters too, but like in terms of like the plot and like keeping you on your seat, and it was very interesting, and it was very entertaining. It was very entertaining, and it felt very nostalgic, and just it had the essence of the original trilogy. I thought it was a very good movie. I enjoyed it. But with this, there is no epic space battle. I didn't even realize, like, I never, like, there's so many like problems with like Disney Star Wars that I just did, and like this movie and Last Jedi, like I just didn't realize this one thing. Han Solo never got to fight using the Millennium Falcon. Like, sure, we saw him fly it, but like barely. He just flew it to like the nearby planet. I agree. It would have been so. Now that I'm seeing this reason, it would have been so awesome to see Han Solo and Chewbacca in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon fighting like TIE fighters or something that were attacking them. Like, instead of Rey, who, like, first off, like, Han and Chewie had trouble piloting that ship with the two of them. How could Rey do it all by herself? Like, also, isn't there like a key or something? How did she just go in and start the thing? Like, how did she know? There's so many buttons. Like, it's like a freaking huge ship. How did she know where everything was? Like, I don't know. That part should have never happened. Where Rey just flew the Millennium Falcon. It was very forced. How did the Millennium Falcon even get there? They're just gonna make a comic book explaining. But yeah, the space battles weren't that interesting, I guess. Nothing was really that interesting. Number 7, the First Order lacked intimidation. When it came to the old Empire, there was always a sense of dread looming overhead. It felt decisive and threatening, ruling with an imperial fist. Emperor Palpatine, while working from the shadows, had everyone cowering at Darth Vader's feet. But here, that same scare factor wasn't replicated with Snoke and Kylo. This also trickled down to General Hux, who felt more like a lackey than an apt replacement for someone like Grand Moff Tarkin. The First Order never felt like a true army rebuilding, but instead like an incompetent bunch with an itchy trigger finger at the Starkiller base. To top it off, we got even more bumbling stormtroopers. Again, a far cry from the Death Troopers we saw in Rogue One, and most disappointingly, Captain Phasma, who brought a ton of hype with her. It was a shame she was reduced to being sent down the garbage chute by Finn. Abrams had a chance to position the First Order as true powerhouse instead of this inept organization of poor copies. Yeah, basically the first let's be honest, everyone. Disney bought Star Wars. They didn't make the old movies. If they made A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Empire, if they made those movies, they wouldn't copy their own movie. Actually, maybe they would, because to sell it again for get money. But what I mean by this, but they in Return of the Jedi, the stormtroopers die, the Empire dies, everything's a happy ending. But they don't want to tell a new story. They want to give the fans a story that they already liked and that was already guaranteed to be a hit. So all they did was bring back the stormtroopers so they could sell more stormtrooper toys, and the rebels so they could sell rebel toys and whatever. And there you go. That's the easy fix. Don't even explain where they went. Just bring them back and sell the toys. That's what they're doing. And it's really frustrating because, why? Why did you have to bring the stormtroopers back? I love stormtroopers, don't get me wrong. And, maybe they could have come back. I would be okay. I'd be okay with them coming back, but at least make it a good story. How about you show, Kylo Ren turning to the dark side instead of just saying he's turned to the dark side for no reason. And then show him bring back the stormtroopers. Show him, building the army, instead of just having them already there and being as dumb as ever, because we all know they can't shoot anything. Literally, you could have had imagine if a stormtrooper killed the main character. How awesome would that be? Well, I think in Rogue One they did that, but that's Rogue One. We don't really care about those characters because we only saw them in one movie. But what if why? Why can't you have multiple Sith instead of the stormtroopers? Why do you have to have one Sith with all these stormtroopers? Maybe have multiple stormtroopers. Change it up a bit. But no, they want to give something to the fans that's guaranteed to make money instead of actually telling a good story. Ridiculous. And now the truth is coming out, and Disney and Galaxy's Edge and Disney toys, they're not making money, and it's because of these decisions. People just don't care anymore. Why? You're not gonna buy. Why would you have two stormtroopers on the shelf, an original trilogy stormtrooper and the First Order stormtrooper? They're the same thing. Nobody cares. They'll buy the original because the original is better. But if you gave us a Sith guy, if there was a new Sith guy in the new trilogy, we'd buy that over the stormtrooper. But oh my god, it's very frustrating. By the way, I don't rage on social media and stuff, but I have opinions, and I'm gonna tell you guys my opinions right now, but I'm not one of those guys who's gonna just not see the movie because of it. I'm gonna see the movie, but at the same time, I'm just mad because there was so much potential, and there's just a lot of things that are going on that kind of make it seem like they really don't care. That's just why I'm mad. They didn't even try. They just wanted to get... you could have at least tried to tell a new story. And you have the resources. You have, more resources than George Lucas. Because Disney, you have so much money to do, some cool-ass stuff. Sorry, I just cursed. I said ass, but... Number 6. The New Republic felt weak. After ending the reign of the Empire, one would think that the New Republic that rose from its ashes would be a bit more grand and authoritative. The fact that it had to rely on the resistance, a splinter faction of its army, says otherwise. With so much time passing since Return of the Jedi, it's shocking that they haven't grown and evolved into something equally as formidable as what the Empire was, so as to be better perched to stave off any potential Imperial resurgence. All we got with regards to a New Republic was just a slightly larger and more sanctioned resistance army still tucked away. Being stuck in this mode showed little evolution, which is surprising because it appeared that the First Order's rebirth still managed to be bigger in scope
than this heroic bunch. After being in the trenches for so long, General Leia and Han could have overseen a stronger line of defense, which fans thought would have been the case after past incidents like the battle on Endor and the toppling of 2 Death Stars.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the Empire fell apart in Return of the Jedi.
And the rebels won.
So how did the Resistance have no one, and the First Order have everyone? That's not even like an opinion on why I don't like this movie. That's like a fact that it shouldn't be like that.
So, number 5, the plot was predictable. A lot of this movie dragged out and actually ended up being highly predictable. It was all a quest that ascertain the whereabouts of Luke, which didn't even utilize the old cast. Well, bar Han Solo. Leia, C-3PO, and R2-D2 were relegated to being peripheral, and a lot of what was transpiring felt like middling material that you wanted out of the way to find out why Luke ran away. No Star Wars movie has ever had that effect. You always wanted to enjoy the ride. Abrams was all about the destination and not the journey. Maz Kanata's base, the Finn and Poe dynamic, and keeping Rey's background in the dark all the time, you just felt like the film was asking you to bear with it until the sequel, where more could be explained. Had this movie shed more light on Kyle or Rey or Kyle's villainous turn, it would have been a more robust and fitting entry. Also, leaving out Luke for so long really diminished the plot, as it ended up being a treasure hunt with space villains chasing as opposed to something more cerebral like the past films.
Yeah, I agree. It was like the treasure. It was like a treasure hunt, you know. Gotta find Luke Skywalker, like, bruh, and like. Speaking of Luke Skywalker, the biggest mistake of this trilogy. I don't care if you okay. I mean, I do care, but like. If you want to copy the whole original trilogy and this new trilogy, go ahead. If you want to give us characters that we don't care about, okay. I don't care. Whatever. But the fact that I'm going to cry right now. I'm not even kidding. I'm going to cry. The fact that you don't reunite Luke, Han, and Leia is absolutely horrible. Carrie Fisher, unfortunately, has passed away. But you killed Han Solo first. So even if Carrie Fisher was alive today, they still would have never reunited. That should be the immediate thing when you make this trilogy. Like, how are you going to reunite them? That should be, like, a must. Like, there's some things that, like, you have to, like... There's some things that, like, you can't force into a story, but you should have forced that. That's just come on. That's come on. If you're making that's like that's like if you're making Back to the Future 4 and like you have Marty McFly in it and Doc in it. Like, what if they just never meet and then Doc dies? Like, what? That's the one thing that really boils my skin about this movie. Worst mistake they'll ever make. That's why, like, oh my god, every time I think about that, it makes me hate it even more. That's the one thing. Everything I read doesn't matter. It does matter, obviously, but if this happened, the fact that this happened, that they didn't reunite all of them, makes it even a million times worse.
It's horrible. So, and yeah, the plot was pretty predictable because it was the same plot as A New Hope. Number 4, destroyed the theme of family. The theme of family is the foundation of magical... The theme of family is the foundational magic that this franchise is built upon, and Abrams totally lost that in translation. The Skywalker legacy was shot to pieces as he hid Luke away and barely used Leia in an attempt to redeem Kylo. The Solo legacy itself felt like a plot tool and a MacGuffin that forced us to view Kylo in a dark light. Even with the new crew, there wasn't that sense of togetherness with everyone, Poe and Finn included, as when The old movies had everyone on the Falcon with Han and Chewie. As when everyone had on the Falcon with Han and Chewie, yeah. When it was Han and Chewie and Leia and Luke on the Falcon, that's the crew. That's the squad. Now you have Poe, Rey, Finn. The three of them never even met. They never even talked all together. They never had a story all together. But now, episode 9, they're all going to be together. But that's the final movie. It's kind of too late. Family's the heart and soul of these films, and making Kylo literally destroy its concept felt like a slap in the face of the old movies, which used the love of family to heal the galaxy. Abrams tried to revive that with Han, but quickly threw that idea in the bin when he confronted Kylo. This movie ended up feeling like strangers, just doing things to find Luke, who they hope will fix the galaxy, as opposed to people coming together and working as one. Having Luke abandon ship said it all. And yeah, I said this before and I'll say it again, and I'm definitely going to make a video more on it. If I was doing this trilogy, it would have been Luke's son, and then Han Solo and Leia had a son and a daughter. And Luke was training the kids in the Jedi Academy. And then Han and Leia's son turned to the dark side. But now you have the connections, which build more emotional impact. We don't care about these characters. They don't relate to anyone. And Kylo killed his father. He killed Han Solo. Nobody wants him redeemed. I do not want Kylo redeemed. Kylo should die because he killed Han Solo. No. Don't get redeemed, Kylo. Number 3, insulting finale. This was a finale that left a lot to be desired. From a played-out space attack on the Empire's weapon of mass destruction to R2-D2 being used as a GPS for Luke, to Rey and Leia sharing a connection that would go unexplained. It was all filled with fluff. And it's not often this franchise comes off its style over substance. Well, except maybe the prequels. But here's what happened. Sorry. Also, why would Rey go alone to meet Luke? Isn't she the new Hope? No, it said there. That's why I call it. All of this we had to power through, only for one shot of Luke being a reclusive hermit. She was offering him his lightsaber, and sadly, we got not even a single word. It was insulting and felt like a cop-out. Your finale should inform and act as a suffix to what came before, bookending and wrapping like a novel. But instead, the last 10 minutes here felt like an extended trailer for a sequel. It told us to stay tuned for Luke as the new Yoda and Kylo as the new Vader, nothing more. Yep, it was really... Do you guys know about what they told Mark Hamill? They told Mark Hamill, Lucasfilm told Mark Hamill, they made him go to the gym twice a week or something to train and whatever, and lose weight and stuff. And then he was like, oh wow, I must have a big role. And then he found out that all he did was take off his hood. How insulting. And then I can't wait to see what this article says about this website, what they say about The Last Jedi, because then they just killed Luke in The Last Jedi before he could even do anything. They gave Rose more screen time than Luke. Rose. So yeah, predictable finale. And I mean, sure, we want to see what happens with Luke next, but it just doesn't make sense why Luke would go to an island and let his friends die. Okay, Luke, do you want the Jedi to end? Okay, sure, Jedi end. But why don't you be a man and help your friends? Which you would, Even if you weren't a Jedi, which you technically weren't in Empire Strikes Back, you still wanted to go help your friends. This is your sister we're talking about. This is the Han Solo, your best friend over 30 years. And I'm not blaming you, Luke. I'm blaming the writers. Because it's all them. Number 2, all fizzle, no sizzle. Leia sent her estranged husband to bring their son back as his betrayal tore the family apart. However, Kylo was having none of it. That said, the sad thing is that when they confronted each other, the dialogue was poor, and by then, Kylo failed to connect as a Judas. This, coupled with Han's death being telegraphed from a mile away, saw Kylo conduct
what should have been a very important turn in death, which didn't resonate at all. There was no emotional connection, so we didn't feel as hurt when Maul killed Qui-Gon or when Obi-Wan sliced and diced Anakin. Even the Vader reveal, as Anakin managed to echo in our geeky souls. The death of Han Solo, though, felt like when we saw Vader kill Obi-Wan. It's only later on that we understood who Obi-Wan really was, so we missed him. But when Vader struck him down, he hadn't been developed much as a character. That same thinking is what made Han's death come off cheap and for shock value. Kylo didn't strike the right chords with us to care about his actions unless it was facing Luke. I totally hate how Kylo killed Han because, if you were gonna kill Han, you had to give him a better death. We don't care about Kylo Ren, so don't have Kylo Ren kill him. Have Han sacrifice himself for the greater good because Han doesn't deserve that. Like, if you're writing this movie, like, how could you do that to all these fans? Like, how can you make that his death? Like, oh my god, how could you kill him like that? That's literally the worst way to die, and it's so disrespectful. Don't tell me about you did it for the story, because there is no story. It's the same story as A New Hope, and Han Solo is kind of like the Obi-Wan here. So why did you have to? Did you just have to kill him because you had to make it exactly like A New Hope? And Mark Hamill even has suggested that Luke and Leia come to see Han right before he dies. And even if he dies, they all have that one moment together. Instead of Rey and Finn, who we don't care about. But they didn't listen to Mark Hamill, which was a very big mistake. Mark Hamill's an actor. He doesn't write movies, but he's a lot smarter than the people working on these movies. Number one, the main reason why the main reason why The Force Awakens is the worst Star Wars movie according to this article, and I think it's probably like the second worst movie. Last Jedi's first. Solo. Forget Solo. A New Hope. The Force Awakens felt like a New Hope ripoff. Abrams lacked ideas and inventiveness in a plot that was severely unoriginal. So many iconic beats were rehashed from the original movie. A planet junker gets roped into an unwitting battle against the Empire with random folks, including a debonair pilot thrown into the mix. She just so happens to be a mystical Force wielder who may have familiar ties to the Skywalkers and their Jedi legacy while protecting a robot that's being hunted. The villains have a planet destroyer, and now the Resistance must attack them proactively with an infiltration unit sent in first. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened when George Lucas first brought this to life in the 70s. At least Abrams showed a unique and fresh spin on his Star Trek reboot. But here it was as much of a love letter to Lucas' original movie as his Superman's Returns from Bryan Singer was to Richard Donner era. I don't know. We don't mind the new pass forward being nostalgic with throwbacks, but we don't want homages overdone or carbon copies. And that's it. So, to wrap it up, Force Awakens was a copy of A New Hope. And, a lot of people were hoping that The Last Jedi would at least redeem a lot of those things, which it didn't. So now The Force Awakens is going back to as what caused all of this, A lot of people hated how Luke was treated in The Last Jedi, but Rian Johnson didn't put him on the island. J.J. Abrams did, and I love J.J. Abrams because he seems like a nice guy. He directed The Lost. This is nothing against his character. I think he's a really good person. But for a movie, it just didn't seem like he really he was trying to do something too much for the fans, and I don't think he thought of the repercussions. And I don't think he expected The Last Jedi to be what it was, because if he knew that Rian Johnson was going to do what he did with The Last Jedi, he probably would have not rehashed A New Hope. But he thought that the next movie would redeem some of the stuff and answer some of the questions he set up, but it didn't. So now it's going back to Force Awakens and as what started all this. Force Awakens was the first Disney movie, so you could say that The Force Awakens started all this whole thing, which it kind of did. So final thoughts. I think Force Awakens is a good movie, but it's the same movie as A New Hope, which is why it's a good movie, because we already saw this movie. Sorry, my phone. We already saw this movie, so there's really no, you know what I mean? We already saw this movie, so of course it's gonna be good. You know, if you're making the same movie, it's gonna be good. So that's pretty much it. That was 15 reasons why. 13 reasons why. No, I'm just kidding. 15 reasons why The Force Awakens is the worst movie. According to this article, I don't think it's the worst movie, but it's definitely not a great movie because it copied everything. You know, if Force Awakens was the first movie ever, if the original trilogy and the prequels never existed and Force Awakens was the first movie, it would be the best movie ever. Actually, what am I saying? No, I take that back. There's still a lot of problems, but it would be like if Force Awakens was the first Star Wars movie ever, people would like it because it had that same essence. But it's literally the same story as A New Hope. So I don't know. It's very frustrating. Rise of Skywalker comes out December 20th, my birthday. You know, I will go see it. I will, hopefully it's good. J.J. Abrams is going back to it. It doesn't look like they're copying Return of the Jedi, even though the Emperor is back. So maybe they are copying Return of the Jedi. But all we can do is have high hopes, I guess. We try and still remember the prequels and the originals. Those were if you ever feel depressed about what Star Wars is now, we always have those. And, we'll definitely address more of this later. We'll definitely talk about Rise of Skywalker. We'll talk about the prequels and the originals and I love the prequels. And you guys may or may not disagree. So we'll talk about that. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Drew. I'm tired, but this was a good discussion. And I will see you guys next time on Drew Reviews.